And the other thing about it is that the fight scenes are filmed incredibly well. Hey everybody, my name is Nick. I'm a director living in Taiwan, and today I'm going to be talking about the film A Prayer Before Dawn from 2017, directed by Jean-Stéphane Salvert. So this is a film about Muay Thai, and one of my hobbies is training Muay Thai, so I've been looking for a Muay Thai centered film to review on this channel for a little while now, and I finally found a film that combines my two favorite things, arty cinema and Muay Thai. This film is very, very interesting in that I think it adheres to a lot of the tropes from boxing and like kind of fight films, but it also does some pretty unique arty things, so I really wanted to talk about it. I love boxing films, even as like kind of cheesy as they usually are. It's kind of like a guilty pleasure of mine. It'd be a lie to say that they aren't formulaic and very trope heavy, like films like Creed even, or The Fighter. These kind of movies that are even considered like kind of high tier movies, they're very kind of the same every time. It's kind of like the same situation with the same actors repeated slightly differently. A Prayer Before Dawn does have a lot of these same like boxing film tropes, which I'll get into and explain more, but I think the execution and the stylistic choices made in this film are so unique that it kind of transcends the genre in a way. And it sets it apart from a lot of these other boxing films that when I was watching it, it made it really more of a unique cinematic experience than other boxing films that I watched. Like other boxing films like Bleed for This or Southpaw or something like that. I watch it, I enjoy it, I like it, but it doesn't really scratch that cinema itch for me, that film nerd itch that I have on this side. So this film did that though, which is why I want to talk about it. So the film is based on a true story of Billy Moore, who was a boxer that was living in Thailand, and he had developed a pretty serious drug addiction while he was there, and he got involved in a lot of gangs. I believe he was doing like underground fighting in Muay Thai. So he was arrested and imprisoned for drug possession. He was able to survive this terrible prison by joining the prison's Muay Thai club, which is pretty interesting that Thai prisons have Muay Thai clubs inside them. So this film is kind of like equal parts boxing film, equal parts prison film. And those are two pretty cool, fun genres. And there's a lot of similarities, I think, between this and a film like Midnight Express. I think it draws heavily from that. Like when I watch Midnight Express and when I watch this, it's definitely the same kind of thing. They touch on the terror of being in a prison in a strange country. They highlight it like to an almost disturbing degree with their handheld camera, and it gives it this kind of like gritty documentary realism in the film that is augmented as well by the fact that it was filmed in an actual prison in Thailand. And I would assume that a lot of the actors are probably Thai prisoners or former prisoners or something like that, or former gang members. Another really interesting thing, and I don't know if this is a setting that I accidentally set on Netflix, is that I watched the majority of it with no subtitles, and I think that made for like a really good viewing experience for this film because it gave me the same kind of disoriented feeling that Billy would have had being thrown to this Thai prison with no subtitles. There's no subtitles in life. You don't know what's going on, and there's people speaking Thai to you. There's a scene in particular where he first arrives and the prison gang is kind of like bullying him, asking him all these questions and using a mix between English and Thai, and he doesn't know what's going on. And if without subtitles, I think that makes that scene really, really effective because you feel the same way that he would feel. It's almost like their jokes and their mocking of him are made scarier by virtue of the fact that you don't know how they're mocking you, and you don't even know how they're threatening you. You just know that you're being threatened. I mean, it's really terrible. Then the reason I say I don't know if this was like a setting was because like later on there were subtitles. So if that was something that the filmmaker did, I think that's a really awesome technique of like no subtitles in the beginning, and then as Billy has been in the prison for a while, he starts to learn the language and then he can understand people. I think that's super cool. I think more films should kind of play with this idea of putting yourself into the actual perspective of the character and thinking, okay, what would he wouldn't know what this is, so this is a first-person movie, so you don't, as audience, don't know what people are saying. I think my favorite thing about the film, though, and the thing that I think, for me, elevated it to this like art film status that I was talking about, was that It's kind of like a terrifying drug trip, the way that the editing and the directing go about. Like the way the story is told, it's very disjointed and fragmented, and scenes are cut and things jump around. Like things kind of end in the middle and then start in the middle. And like he's in a situation and you don't, like there's not a lot of continuity to like, okay, this is day one, day two kind of a thing. It's like time becomes this amorphous, confusing thing in this movie. And that is something that I think just elevates this film to like a weird acid trip or like a weird drug trip, like you're smoking yaba like Billy. Like you don't know where you are. I mean, it's clearly intentional because Billy is a drug addict and he's under an insane amount of stress being in a prison. The disorienting way the story is told mimics the disorientation that the main character is feeling. And it puts you in his headspace and you can't keep track of how long he's been there, you know, what's going on. You jump around from him doing drugs, trying to get drugs, fighting in the infirmary, having a guard kind of blackmail him, being locked in solitary, and all of these are like these little vignettes, like these kind of slices of his time there that blend into each other, and you know, you don't know what the logic of it is, like where it goes. And you would think, oh, maybe that makes for like a bad storytelling, but no, it really doesn't. It really draws you into the film because there's kind of this through line of him learning Muay Thai throughout this. So that's kind of the thing you can latch on to, the kind of more traditional like boxing movie thing that kind of threads this art film together, I would say. A really good example of this is that like he's training for this Muay Thai fight and then it jumps into the fight in like round 2 or something in the middle. So he's training for the fight and then all of a sudden he's in the fight. And the other thing about it is that the fight scenes are filmed incredibly well. The camera during the fight scenes is just insanely well done. Like they put you really, really close up to the action. I think the sound design is really fantastic. You can hear like the smacks and the breathing and the panting and the kind of the clinch work, the choreography. I'm not like a pro Muay Thai fighter, but I know a little bit about it, and it seemed, you know, really well done. Lots of good knees and kicks and all this kind of stuff. Technique was great. You know, even the things the coaches tell him was like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. So really, really good fight choreography. You know, the camera stays in close and it mimics kind of Billy's brawling fighting style, and it gives this really intense feel to these fight scenes that I think, you know, you miss a lot when you're kind of getting this wide view and you want to see all these cool moves like in a movie like Ip Man. This is not like that. This is like gritty Muay Thai up close, elbows to the face. You know, like I said, there are the boxing cliches. Like there's this part of the film, this kind of very common boxing thing of like Billy has a or a health injury from doing too many drugs, and then you can't box ever again. If you box and you get in a ring, you'll die. Like how many freaking times do we have to see that? But what can I really complain about is based on a true story, so I'm assuming that actually happened to him and he had this life-threatening thing, and I guess it happens to boxers a lot, so that's why they put it in these movies. It's just, you know, when it's that part of it is not really that interesting to me, because you kind of, as you're watching these boxing films over and over again, you're like, yeah, here he comes, like boxer, really good, can't box anymore because it's too dangerous, this kind of thing. Long story short, love this film. If you're looking for a Muay Thai film, this, in my opinion, is the best one I've seen. What's your favorite fight film? What's your favorite martial arts related film? What's your favorite boxing film? Let me know in the comments. Anything that I should review, let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, as all the YouTubers say, and I'll see you next time.